Mike is a leader at American Student Assistance, our sponsor for this event today, so thank you for hosting and pulling this together. It's really good to have all of you here. This is going to be fun. We have, as you'll see, we have a variety of opinions on this developing subject, so I think this will be, it'll be interesting and hopefully a little juicy. Hey, Ian. We'll talk about MrSchooljoy.com is doing some interesting things with career sims. He's thinking hard about credentialing experience. We're just killing time before the live feed starts. Otherwise, we'd rock and roll.
Ask Ben what he wants to know. Ben.
Ben, what do you want to talk about? Anything we could clear up for you? I'll do the briefest of introduction for each of you before your slides queue up, but you're well represented in the program, so we'll, and the audience knows something about most of you, so we're going to keep introductions brief.
Were the slides just for our introduction?
Yes, just for the first questions. So I'm Tom Vander Ark from Getting Smart, moderating a session today on capturing and communicating the benefits of powerful learning experiences. I'm excited about the momentum across America for powerful learning, for deeper learning. I see more high school and college students doing career-connected learning, starting even in the middle grades. Our sponsor for the session today, ASA, has been huge champion for a middle grade career exploration. So powerful experiences starting in middle grades, through high school, into college. So more kids are having powerful experiences, but not many of them are benefiting from capturing those experiences. They don't roll into the grade book or into the transcript very well. Very few of them have a digital wallet where they can represent those experiences. Sometimes experiences go on through a resume along with employment. But the driving question that we want to get at today is how can we provoke and host more powerful experiences, and how can we help capture and communicate the benefit of those experiences, including the skills that are developed and demonstrated during those experiences. I hope today we can focus particularly on client-connected projects, community-connected projects. Some people call those like a project internship, internships, apprenticeships, and especially entrepreneurial experiences that students might initiate to create value in their community, whether it's a social impact enterprise or launching a business. But these are really valuable experiences, just not very well captured, and so that's what we're going to try to get at today. And we have an amazing panel that's coming at this challenge from a lot of different angles. So you're going to hear about different strategies. Some of them are pretty well aligned, and some of them are new and different. So we're going to run down this way. I'll say a word of introduction before kicking them off, but leading off is Pete Janzow. Pete's been in this space a long time, has been a leader at Acclaim, Credly, Pearson, probably the world's leader in this space of credentialing. So Pete, give us a quick sense of how your organization is helping to capture and communicate valuable experiences.
Sure, and thanks for getting the band back together. Some of us have been up here with Tom before. So first, did you notice the new Pearson brand that came up, the purple with the ripples? The ripples are the impact of learning on people's lives. And that's really the core of the brand, is on the impact that learning is going to have for all of us, right, to keep us thriving in the future. So I wanted to talk just 3 points here about where Pearson is going, where Credly fits, and some of the challenges that I see. First off, the story at Pearson these days is around insights. What do we have? What do we need to have in the future? What skills do we have today? What's the impact of technology and change? And how can we help communicate that back to the system? Whether that's school systems or employers, whether it's the transition from high school to college, et cetera. In January, we launched a report at the World Economic Forum called Lost in Transition. Lost in Transition pointed out, every year in America, we lose 1.1 trillion with a T dollars because of inefficient transitions between school and work, or between work and I get disrupted, or because I'm underemployed at work.
Or it could be a military to education or military to work.
Precisely. Right? Even looking at one segment of that, from college, from college to career transition, if we were to shorten that transition time by 6 weeks, that would contribute $40.1 billion back to the American economy every year. We live in an age where we have to make the business case for all of our motivations here. And someone pointed out, let's talk about the sustainable model that we can get to. And that's really what brings me to Credly and the work that we did at Acclaim, right? So first off, give all of yourselves a round of applause. 13 years, we're at probably 200 million credentials out in the universe now. Come on. That's to your credit. And that's based on the open badge standard that premiered 13 years ago in a meeting we had out in Silicon Valley, convened by the MacArthur Foundation and by Mozilla. So anyway, congratulations to all of you.
That was Connie Yowell.
That's right, Connie Yowell, yeah.
Kind of kicked off the whole open badges thing.
Yep. Yeah, it was a fun meeting. We were kind of shouted down at Credly, or Acclaim at the time, because we were bringing the authorities in with us. We brought Microsoft and IBM and the others. And the mantra at the time was, keep badges weird, dude. And we said, look, that's useful. It's useful for me to give a credential to Jason because I know he can do the job.
Because it kicked off a lot of badging. The downside was that we had a lot of people badging. You could badge anybody, could get a badge for anything. So a two-sided coin there, right?
Exactly, yeah. And getting back to the economic argument that we're all trying to make here, by focusing on the high-value credentials, we can signal to employers what a person knows or what they can do, and it's really the employer who's going to extract the value and get over to a skills-based model. And Jason's going to talk a little about how the chamber is trying to capitalize on that and propagate it. So anyway, eager to sit here and talk with you all about what's next. There's a lot of work to do, and frankly, I can't believe it's been 13 years, and we're only at 200 million, and the impact with employers is disappointing. So that's the challenge that we can roll our sleeves up together with.
All right, I want to, very quick answer, why aren't employers using credentials more in talent transactions? What's the holdup?
Change management, right? It's a different way to view things. It's one thing to say hire by skills. It's another thing to get all of the systems and the preconceptions and the biases off the table so that somebody's not hiring a degree. They're hiring a person with specific, discrete skills.
Last fall, I saw a statistic that I couldn't believe, and it said CEOs were about 80% bullish on credentials, but HR professionals were about 50% bullish. And so there was this internal gap in hiring entities that HR professionals are still sort of defaulting to degrees and bad skill proxies.
And that's the disconnect. SHRM did that study. So if you're all looking for more to build your business case, SHRM did this study, and the senior officials were all sold on the idea of skills-based hiring. But when you got it down the chain, either to the hiring managers or especially the HR professionals, they wanted to fall back on their old models. Well, I trust a degree from this school, or I trust someone who has a degree as opposed to someone who doesn't have a degree. So that's what we're up against.
All right, Jason Tisco from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation is a leader in this space and has been for a decade. They're an active leader in the learning and employment record space through the T3 networks, but Jason's team also stood up EPIC, the Employer Provided Innovation Challenge, which is a very cool network of affiliates around the country hosting powerful learning experiences and badging them. So he's really on both sides of this as kind of a sender of credentials, but also trying to stand up receiver network. So tell us more about the Chamber Foundation's work.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. So hello, everyone. Jason. And tell you a little bit about the Chamber and Chamber Foundation. I actually work for both organizations. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the world's largest business federation. We represent over 1,500 state and local chambers of commerce. We have a collective reach of over 3 million firms across our federation. I support education and workforce policy on the membership side. On the foundation side, that's our nonprofit affiliate. And that's where we have a workforce portfolio that's aiming to do a lot of things, but really emphasizing closing gaps around employer engagement, gaps around data and technology, as well as gaps around how we finance the system. So lots of different initiatives, but what I wanted to spend kind of my opening remarks on was the T3 Innovation Network and what we're doing there, because it very much complements what Pete was talking about. So if we go to the next slide, these are just some of the innovations we're supporting. You may have heard about the record, a digital record of experience, that's structured data. The experience could be a classroom experience, co-curricular experience, an employment experience, military, community. It doesn't matter. Whatever the experience is, we can create structured data around it. But we've also done work on storage, whether it's a digital container or wallet. We've done work around AI usage to bring your past forward because your past is still relevant. So how are we able to create structured data about your past experiences that you could at least self-assert in the form of a record? And then how can we, through linked claims, validate what's inside of those? And in the old days, it used to be I can endorse the entire badge or nothing at all. But with this new standard, you're able to go in and you can endorse a single item within a record. So I could go in and say, hey, Pete, I've done these 10 skills. Are you willing to sign off on them? And you can say, I've seen 5 of them, and I can embed evidence and endorse it without endorsing the entire thing. And then the resume standard, which is a really important one. This solves kind of the problem that Pete was teeing up, which is how do you make these things make sense for employers? Because we're not throwing CVs or portfolios at human resource information systems or applicant tracking systems. They are not set up to process it that way, and employers are not asking for that. But we have created a new data standard that would allow employers, through their HR vendors, to parse data from a LER-based resume. So we're going to be publishing new kinds of data packages. There's still going to be resume data load, but it is now going to be machine actionable in an HR system, so we can finally process all of that experience data and assess it for fit for the job, and then have discussion over what's quality and not. But I at least know I could unpack the sum total of your experiences that are relevant to the job, and the machines can accurately process it and not get weeded out or send a link that they can't follow.
So Jason, this LER at the resume standard, that's relatively new, right?
Yes.
Does that align with the CLR from One Ed Tech, the Comprehensive Learner Record standard? How are those related?
Yeah, so we work through our T3 network. The T3 network is a collective action initiative among standards bodies, vendors, nonprofits, you name it, but it's cross-domain, education to employment to military, and we're all working to make all learning count, make skills like currency, and to empower learners and workers with data. And as part of that, the standards bodies, not only on the education side, whether it's One Ed Tech, whether it's PESC, but also on the HR side, HR Open Standards Consortium, we're bringing them together to map their data standards, harmonize where possible, so all the standards and the vendors that are using those standards can be in this interoperability business.
What is linked claims? I don't think I know that term.
So that's what I was mentioning, the ability to go in and validate what's inside someone's record. So I can issue you a record, or you can share a record with me, and I can validate what's inside of it. So think of it this way.
It's a cool idea, because that could include experience as well as skills, right? There could be metadata around an experience that could be verified.
Yeah, and this is how we're going to democratize this entire movement, because now everyone doesn't have to be an issuer. If I was an intern somewhere and I wanted to share with a supervisor or an employee that's going through a performance review, and I want to say, hey, instead of you issuing me a record as my supervisor, I am sharing a record with you thinking, saying I've demonstrated these skills or had these learning outcomes on the job, are you willing to validate those claims? So now it kind of flips the entire script, where now it's the individual having more agency in pushing their learning outcomes and others validating what's inside those records. But if you go to the next slide, just to give you a visual, I don't need to walk through it entirely, but what I want to emphasize here is, from the learner, there's different ways you can start generating records. You could bring your past forward through an experience use style application. You can have an education or training partner issue you a record, or through various co-curricular activities like a work-based learning opportunity. That's another way where you could bring a record. And the goal is to collect multiple records based on these experiences in a digital container like a wallet. but then unpack them and have validators make claims about them, attach evidence. But ultimately, if you want to do skills-based hiring using these new kinds of digital records and credentials, that's where we're going to need to output a resume presentation of that data, and the HR systems that are processing it are going to need that standard. But then once you're employed, you can also get a verified employment record for the first time ever.
This might be a bridge to those pesky HR people that I was talking about a minute ago who are used to using resumes, and I think giving them a LER and a resume standard might bridge that gap.
Yep.
Yes?
This is one of the best ways the T3 network could add value because it's cross-domain, and this is a way of saying, it's not about like innovating and saying, you know, the badge movement started in one place and they were doing great things. Now they're trying to extend use cases into the employment space. But were employers really at the table? Were we identifying the use cases? Were we looking at their technology? Well, now we're there because we are looking at it. And this is how you meet employers where they're at and how you make these digital records and credentials make sense in the hiring workflow. So this is the bridge if skills-based hiring is one of the things that you want to use these credentials for.
A year ago when I was at your T3 conference, well, two observations. One is it's a really interesting group of people that are they're very different than an education conference because you have a lot of different kinds of people. You have folks from workforce and the hiring side of the equation, so interesting group. Two, I remember a year ago wondering how the federal government was going to be more involved in being an active player in this space, and I guess that won't be the case. We can't count on a coherent federal/national response other than you, can we?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, we had Congressman Owens from Utah at our Digital Transformation and Learning and Work event 2 weeks ago in DC, and he opened up that event. It was a T3 network event, and he gave a very passionate explanation for why he's all in on digital records and credentials and what it could mean for learner worker empowerment and mobility.
Is Department of Labor going to be an active and positive force in this, or?
They can be. So the reason I brought up Congressman Owens is he actually had mentioned that there'd be interest on the Hill in actually promoting some kind of national LER legislation, if that would be helpful. So that both encourages me and frightens me.
Yes.
But there, I think there's a way government can play a role. We got to figure out what that is, and they want to have some skin in the game.
That's great. We'll come back at the end and talk about how this stuff goes to scale, and we'll come back to that. Next, Gita Verma at University of Colorado, Denver, has piloted a super cool capability called LivedX, where she's extracting skill credentials from valuable experiences. My team is really excited about this, and I think you've even turned this into a startup with some help from some folks in the audience. So Gita, tell us about LivedX.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So yeah, I'm Gita Verma. I'm a professor of STEM education at the University of Colorado, Denver, and also founder of LivedX. And the reason I started this startup is I'm a tenured professor. I've been funded by NSF, and I've done a lot of work with students, getting them interested in...
That's an agency that used to exist? Is that... Probably can't count on a lot more of that funding.
Well, some of the NSF programs, yes, are still being funded. So we're in the flux, as you can imagine. And what I noticed was that students, despite us investing a lot in instructional curricular space in STEM education, if you look at the data tells you that the needle is not moving in the right direction. And this happens year after year. And we know that we are funding a lot of programs. And I started to explore what could be going on here, and actually found out that there was a body of literature around what you call foundational skills, transferable skills. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Harvard EASL project, where they're taking 45+ frameworks in these areas and mapping them to each other. And I was just curious about what does that entail for students. And I kept reading that students need to have these skills. And I was like, that's great, but how do you measure? Because it's not like a science or math exam that you can give them a test, right? So how do students talk about their skills? So we talked about internship, apprenticeship. Students can have great internships and not so great and everything in between. Or they can have, and if you think about that idea, then what is it that students are experiencing if it's not a great experience? It's not like a total wash, but if you ask them, what did you learn? You will hear many students say, I don't know. Does that sound familiar, right? So what was happening was that students were learning these skills, but they were not able to articulate those skills. So with LivedX, and LivedX stands for lived experiences, students can document their experiences, not skills, in their own words from lived and learned experiences. And then we have
And they can be experiences from in school, out of school,
internship, babysitting, you talk about any of those things, right? And then we have this extensive R&D we've done through the NSF grants. We've been funded by NSF SBIR, and we can tease out the embedded skills because we've done extensive research and qualitative research with like human in the loop and IRR. So it's all kind of, we want to make sure that the credentials we're giving are agreed upon, are quality controlled, and are verified from various perspectives. And we can take those credentials and then issue them certificates that can be now stacked into college credits through the University of Colorado, Denver. For high school students, it's only $74 per college credit. For university students, it's $119. And so the way we are thinking about this is we are more than our transcripts. We are more than our certificates. We are more than our competencies. We are complex human beings. We are nuanced. How do we capture that nuance and put it in front of whichever stakeholder, whether it's a employer, whether it's getting in front of an admission office in a university, anywhere else. And so many of our experiences, we're not able to issue credentials. We don't have badges, but our students are earning and learning and kind of accumulating those experiences. So we take it a step further, and we're able to do that for students. And not only document those experiences, we're able to credential those experiences. So that's LivedX. If you could move to the next slide. So we are partnering with high schools. We're partnering with universities. And this is beyond credit for prior learning. So credit for prior learning universities, like if you have some floating credits here and there, you can bring those, we can bring it back. This extended that conversation, broadening the notion of academic achievement beyond academic endeavors. Because our lives have values, and this is documented in literature. We know about funds of knowledge. We know about social cultural capital. And we have students that nobody's asking them about these experiences. And I feel that we would serve our students well if we bring them into the fold of what the conversations you all were having. So yeah, so we call them the new credentials. We call them, we take the first step for you. Because we've done the first step. Like you can talk about any experiences and we'll help you document that and help you earn credentials. So that's your first step. And then you can go from there to your formal learning experiences, whether it's work, any of those things. So that's what we're trying to do through LivedX.
Pete, this is a pretty cool idea, isn't it? I like the fact that some of these credentials can be for credit. And I guess I'll ask this in the form of a question. It seems like the credentialing space is going to rely for the foreseeable future often on stacking on top of credits or stacking into credits, and it will also be related to licensure. Do you see that as part of the future of credentials being related to both credits and licensure?
Absolutely. So ACE and CALE are probably the two leading organizations for college credit for work experience, CALE for life experience. I like this approach because you're applying some AI technology to inferring that and drawing it out of people. But the challenge here is putting it into a simple enough language that it normalizes, that it communicates very readily to employers or to the colleges so they know exactly where you fit. So I think that's really where the challenge comes in, is how do we scale this? Right? It's easy to do it with a box full of my experiences and someone comes and evaluates them individually, but that's not going to scale. So the question is, how do we do this at scale?
Yeah. Thank you, Geeta. Meet my friend Laura Slover. She leads Skills for the Future at ETS. Laura and ETS a year ago, 8 months ago, acquired Mastery Transcript Consortium. Right. Laura got me in that transaction. I was on the MTC board. I'm now on her board, and I'm really excited about this initiative that is framed up by the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning and ETS. Tell us about your agenda.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. And wow, what an awesome, brilliant group. Hard act to follow. So I'm Laura Slover. I am leading this endeavor called the Skills for the Future Initiative. It is a partnership of the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching and ETS, which I do have a new logo. It's lowercase ETS, and it now stands for Education and Talent Solutions. So you can see that ETS is making a transition into a lot of what we're talking about here, preparing learners with important skills that will prepare them for enrollment, enlistment, and employment. So what the two organizations are doing together is really trying to re-architect high school, thinking specifically about three things. One, redefining the goals. For a long time, and I've been involved in K-12 policy initiatives for a number of years with Tom. And for a number of years, we've focused primarily on academic content because it was easy to measure. It served as a proxy for things like critical thinking and communication. But it's a kind of a weak and fuzzy proxy. So expanding goals to focus now on things that can be measured more easily, things that we're calling durable skills: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, leadership, adaptability, all the things that employers in particular are saying are the most important that they want incoming employees to have. These are the things that make us human. They're the things that can't be replicated by computers. It's how do we work together as human beings. The second element of our work together is around changing experiences. I love what you're talking about, because really we want to get kids up and out from behind their desks into their communities, into work-based and apprenticeships, into acknowledging that they do a lot of work in their communities, in their families, taking care of siblings or older adults. But those things are largely invisible, and so we want to be able to see those and see the unique assets that individual learners bring and be able to capture that. So the third thing that we're doing, which is my jam around assessments and signaling, is capturing information. It's great that kids are going to be having more of these experiences as they go into more apprenticeship and work-based learning, but we've got to figure out how to capture that, both through looking at actual experiences, looking through authentic work, and then actually through skills-based assessments. So ETS has been a leader in the assessment space for almost a century and is really digging in on, well, what would it look like to measure and capture collaboration that isn't let's all sit down and take a fill-in-the-bubble test. Collaboration is not something you can pass or fail. It's something that you grow over time. So thinking about ways to capture those pieces of evidence and be able to help students look at their improvement over time. Now, we're not doing that in a bubble. We're actually working with 5 states. Our states are Indiana, North Carolina, Nevada, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin. I didn't go in alphabetical order there, so that messed me up. And those states are actually piloting tools right now in the field. We've had a fast and furious year to get tools in the hands of learners so we can learn directly from young people. Do they like this kind of AI engaging tool? Or is it not as sophisticated as what they're doing on their phones every day? Like, there's a real problem that in K-12 schools, because of privacy concerns, because of protected data, you have to be careful what you put in front of students. So we're right now, we're piloting a whole set of really cool, innovative AI tools with the goal of having students have records, which is gonna bring us all back full circle, records when they leave high school that they can take with them to go into the job, into college, and into life. So they can certify that they have these skills and that they continue to be able to grow them.
So the reason I wanted Laura on this panel is that she just described a different way to capture and communicate experiences. It's through a new set of assessments by virtue of which students demonstrate competencies. Those competencies go into a mastery tracker that MTC just introduced, and then they end up on a mastery transcript. So a new way, instead of relying on courses and grades as the primary skill proxy that we've used for 150 years, these students in this pilot have a mastery transcript so they can communicate the competencies they have developed probably along with the mastery record with some evidence about experiences they've had. That record may or may not have credentials involved, but it is a different way of capturing experience than the traditional transcript.
The record has a few key aspects. One is that it can ingest authentic work with comments, and it's not exactly certification, but kind of input and validation from teachers about students' experiences. And as we are looking ahead, validation from employers, validation from coaches who have really up-close experience with learners. Now, the cool thing about the Mastery transcript is that it's been accepted by nearly 700 universities and colleges as indications of readiness for credit-bearing courses and access to post-secondary.
Just underscore that. That's an important milestone, that Mastery Transcript Consortium schools and a few other schools that have introduced a growth transcript now have evidence of hundreds of kids being admitted to hundreds of colleges. We have verifiable evidence that growth transcripts are a good or better alternative to traditional signaling systems. So I think that's the important underscore here. All right, meet Mike DeSenza. He's from SchoolLinks. SchoolLinks is a really exciting new capability that is taking the country by storm. It's a college and career readiness platform. We ran into SchoolLinks first in Kansas City, where we're working with 85 high schools that are trying to encourage more real-world learning, client projects, internships, entrepreneurial experiences. And they told us we're using SchoolLinks to capture and badge those experiences. And then I called Mike up and he said, tell me about this platform, and found out that you're now going statewide in Washington. So tell us about SchoolLinks and how you help capture experiences.
Well, thank you, Tom. So SchoolLinks, as a college and career readiness platform, we didn't actually start out initially to capture experiences. We were focused on how do we scaffold the process of getting kids to understand what their next step is. We actually started as a direct-to-consumer platform, making fun, swipeable, dating app-like career assessments that helped kids get excited about their futures. And then we started to move into working with school districts to actually do some of the operational work of plumbing around making sure that all of the students' achievements, academic work was structured in the right way so that they could actually aim for a pathway for post-secondary success. So we basically incorporated all of the operationalization of these disparate activities that counselors, CTE, accountability departments do within the scaffolding of the journey for students initially to college, but also increasingly and more so now our focus is on career. And so initially we started building an experience tracker because students needed to track their National Honor Society hours, their community service hours, which is a pretty narrow use case. And then over time we realized, oh wow, for these competency-based graduation requirements in a number of states, for work-based learning, to be able to get a CTE pathway completion, you had to have a certain number of hours, had to be validated by employers. We expanded what we were doing to build a whole framework around how are you capturing, verifying, getting an employer or a supervisor to sign off on that work, getting feedback on that work, and then an approval process and then an audit process to submit that documentation to the state. So if we take a look at what we've done, we've effectively made essentially a bingo card. I mean, it's more structured, less random. You know, skills are stackable. They're aligned with someone's career interest. But we're actually helping students codify their journey of checking off certain competencies required by their programs in a CTE perspective or graduation requirements at a local and state level. And once we track all that, verify that, we actually push that into students' resumes, into their profiles. We have a digital credential wallet that's issuing Open Badge 3.0 claims. We produce comprehensive learner records that include this verified experience. And overall, our approach here is how do you make what students are doing in K-12 more tangible? We're trying to help school districts and school systems justify the expansion of their work into these new initiatives and make something that a student can take with them. When we started this work 8, 9, 10 years ago, from the beginning, we said students were always going to be able to take their profile after they graduate and use it. And this wallet that we've released in the last year, the digital credential wallet, is an extension of that work.
All right, I got to I got to tell you why I'm so excited about this. So we published a report on credentialing 90 days ago. A few of you read it. And at the back of that report, it said, we need a better way to capture and communicate experiences. And we did this wheel, and it said, there's lots of different kinds of valuable experiences, and we ought to have a good tool that will capture different kinds of experiences and the value of those experiences. And then we saw this, and I called Mike up. He said, oh, yeah, we do that. We have this experience tracker. It's really good at capturing different kinds of experiences and the quality of those experiences. And like he said, badging them, pushing them into records and resumes. So I was really excited when I found this.
Yeah, I mean, the work that we've been doing is actually, it's funny because it started really from the needs of districts. You know, meeting Tom and Jason and folks on stage here, and understanding that this is part of a larger movement was really powerful, because for us, this was just like, oh, you know, the CT department in this district said we have this huge problem because our spreadsheets are so messy, you know, and we're like, how can we build the boring plumbing to do it? But it's emerged into something that's much more meaningful.
So something like a messy experience, like an internship, how would it get captured by this system?
Yeah, so LEAs or SEAs, they have defined criteria for what type of metadata is needed to validate an experience. So sometimes it's about the hours, sometimes it's about specific skills and validation. Some states have certain initiatives. Ohio is one that we focus on a lot, the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, where they actually outline a series of competencies. You as a student put in the name and the email of a mentor in a workplace, in the school, in the community. We send them an email. They could have an account, they don't have to have an account, but what they're doing is they're going in, they're saying, oh yeah, this person demonstrated punctuality, this person demonstrated critical thinking, and they have to leave a comment on it. And at the end of your time in high school, you basically take away almost like a reference sheet where all of those different adults in your community have gone through and signed their name to say, I vouch for this kid doing this thing.
That's very cool. Hey, Kim Alexander, Collegiate Edunation, 21 districts in Texas, rural districts, all doing career-connected learning together. Do you guys have any common way of capturing experiences, the internships that kids are doing? Any of them use school links, or do you have something else? Y'all ought to talk.
Sounds good.
And I thought you had the nicest boots on in the room, but Laura has these. Those are very badass.
They're comfortable too.
Anyway, I thought about you because I think school links might be really useful. Kim is doing some of the most exciting work in the country, where he's got small rural districts that are creating P-TECH models with early college, with work-based learning in some of the most remote communities in the country. It's really exciting, and it feels like what we're doing is trying to solve some of your district challenges. Let's spend a couple minutes just talking about how this goes to scale. I guess I'm frustrated that more people aren't adopting the wallet that your partners are developing. Jason, I said, Pete, I'm frustrated that more employers aren't using the credentials that you're issuing. What's the challenge at going to scale? Jason, you feel a sense of momentum and hope? I'm bummed out. Help me here.
I'm ever the optimist, and I think for a lot of this, like the LER resume standard, it didn't exist. We just got version 2 done. Now it's ready for deployment. We're starting to socialize it with the HR vendor community. So this is going to be a huge milestone for us to move this forward, and we're going to start to marshal partners within the T3 network to really do a full-scale deployment for like the next 10 years or more to really make all skills and experience count in America, where we can issue them, we can validate them, we can use them in the form of a resume presentation. So we're going to make a big push, and we're going to make this make a lot of sense to employers, not just at the point of hiring, but think of it. We have over 170 million workers here where we could be documenting their learning experiences on the job every day, or at least once a year. Yeah. Think of all those work-based learning experiences that are happening supported by employers. So think of employers as almost like the new educators, with HR being the new registrar and LER being the new transcript. So I think there's huge capacity in our system to start mass producing these records in a way that's going to make a lot of sense to use cases we weren't previously addressing. Yeah. And we got some big delivery plays. Like I had mentioned, we're trying to promote this new employee-owned benefit called a skill savings account to upskill and reskill. Well, if we got 60 million workers to open up a new skill savings account and had an average balance of $1,500 to $2,000 in to get started, you'd create a $100 billion upskilling marketplace where the LER could be the transcript of choice. So we think there's going to be some creative movements now to really go big, but a lot of the big movements may occur outside of the traditional education channels. So we got to be taking a wide view of who's going to be the user.
You are optimistic. I think yesterday you said you think in a couple of years we'll have 100 million skills.
So that was my play it safe. I'd say within fewer than 10 years, we'll have over 100 million skills issued, verified, and used. Honestly, I think it's going to be north of 1 billion. And I could give you the math on how we're going to get there.
That's really exciting. And Mike, I told you I was really excited about your partnership in Washington. I guess as part of that, facilitating the high school and beyond plan, is that the main role that you're going to play?
Yeah, that's right. The High School and Beyond Plan in Washington is essentially the document that aligns students' coursework, their college and career exploration, and then their actual application process with where they're trying to go after they graduate. And
so this feels like an example of state leadership that is moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think there's a spectrum of different approaches that we see. As some states are structuring very tightly the expectations for this. Others are saying, hey, we have this goal, and then the districts are doing the work. So I think there's two different models in states like Ohio, where the state hasn't been super prescriptive, but the districts have stepped up. That can also work as well.
California announced a big wallet initiative last week. Maybe that's another example of state leadership. Fingers crossed. Gita, you're getting a lot of momentum. You see this LivedX kind of capability scaling in the next few years?
Yes, and I feel like we complement what people are already doing. It doesn't replace anything. It
Right.
just expands the offering.
No, you have a cool capability that like Laura could pull that into skills for the future, right?
Right. Yeah,
Pete
so
could
similarly,
pull
like
that in.
the badges, I mean, our institution uses badges. Like, what are badges proxy for? If we can ingest that data and intersect with people's lived experiences, there's something really interesting happening that can be proxy to the employers for something. So there are possibilities. So I see LivedX as supporting a lot of initiatives, in addition to us doing whatever we are doing, but it can really complement people's efforts.
I think we've documented some progress on capturing and communicating skills. Join me in giving our panelists a round of applause. Thank you.